Hi, I'm Pam, and I would like to welcome you to the Live Authentically show. My team and I help other people step into their authentic realities via a number of different modalities. This podcast is obviously one of them. We also have a Facebook group, and we can be found at liveauthentically.today/FB. And here you can find a group of like-minded people committed to spiritual growth and transformation. I'm also super pumped that I just launched my first book. It is called SOAR, SOAR, and you can go to pamelasavino.com to check it out. It is also available on Amazon in audio, paperback, and Kindle. I'm also a spiritual life coach and work with individuals to discover the essence of who they are and step into their purpose and totally transform their lives. I am super pumped that on today's show, I have with me Debra Atkinson. Hi, Debra.
Hi,
How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm doing great, thank you. And thank you so much for taking time to be on my show. I so appreciate it.
You bet.
So before we hear all about Debra, she has a long list of accomplishments. She is a fitness, marketing, and sales coach, best-selling author and speaker. She specializes in working with women in their prime, and her brand is Flippin' 50. But before we hear about all of that and her many accomplishments, I would love to hear how you answer the following question. This is a question that I start every show with, and
Okay.
it is, drum roll, are you ready?
I'm so ready.
What does it mean to you to live authentically every day?
Yeah, to me, that means really it's just you do you. So I do me. Everybody else is taken. I'm sure that's not my line. I think it might be Wayne Dyer's. I'm not sure. But, I think it's just taking the mask off, and being very transparent and living with integrity.
I love that answer. And
Mhm.
on your journey, at what point was there a certain catalyst or certain life experience that really prompted you to say, hey, maybe it's time to start peeling back the layers and really connect with who I am and start removing the mask?
Oh gosh, that's a good question. So I'm going to give you a complicated, not so simple answer. Um, I was raised by older parents. So I was the youngest of four kids. I was born when my mom, I think, was 38, which back in 1964, it wasn't sexy yet to have kids when you were that old. That was kind of odd.
Okay.
And she remarried when I was 6, a man 10 years older. So if you can imagine, my parents hung out with most of my friends' grandparents. And that's who they
Okay.
played cards with.
Mhm.
So my culture was older adults, older music. But that said, my stepfather was just a man of really high integrity. And um, he always did the right thing. And
Mhm.
not one person, had a negative thing to say about him. He died a very old man, and the church was full. And so that's unusual, in a very small town. So
Yeah.
that was kind of the high caliber of do the right thing that I was raised with. So I feel like I had a lot of transparency, but until you start a business and you have to hang your shingle, you have to promote yourself. I don't think until that moment you realize that you have been wearing a mask, that it just brings all of your stuff up, if you will. And it's probably one of the hardest things to do is you go through personal growth when you're starting a business and you're putting yourself out there. It becomes a very vulnerable place, and you realize you all through your life haven't been as vulnerable as you might have thought you were.
Right. That's a great answer. I love that. Let's talk about vulnerability a little bit. I'd love to touch on that because that is such a huge piece of growth and transformation. And you're right. I mean, it's not a comfortable place to be. It's not easy to put ourselves out there. But can you tell me about one of the most vulnerable moments you had as you were heading down the path of entrepreneurship and starting your own business?
Oh boy. How long do we have?
Oh, a few hours. I've got all night. We can tell stories all night because I have plenty of vulnerable stories to tell as well. But
There
let's
have
start with yours.
been, yes, there have been so many. So when I started my business, I'm what we call, if you do a personality profile, a quick start. So that means, we all jump right in, we get things done right away, even if there are messy mistakes, and we'd rather do that and get it done before it's perfect. So I jumped in as typical in both feet. I quit my job and all the safety and security of the insurance and the regular paycheck and the TIAA CREF fund. And I'm sure my older conservative parents, were like, what did you just do?
Mhm.
But that said, by the end of that first year, there's a lot more money going out than coming in when you're starting a business. And I was learning to bring a business online. So a lot of new skills. There was a lot of learning, a lot of expenditures and learning courses and getting coaches and getting support.
Mhm.
And so when everybody else was decorating for Christmas, I was taking all the pictures down from my wall to list my house. Because I had said when I got in, if I'm not where I need to be, I'll sell my house. Be
Mhm.
careful what you wish for, right? So that's exactly what I got. And that was the beginning of several major life changers. First of all, I quit my job. That was a big one.
Mhm.
Um, During that year, a long-term relationship dissolved. That was going to be kind of my sounding board for business. So that disappeared.
Mhm.
The wasn't going as well as I needed it to. So my son had gone off to college, and so empty nester. I'm selling my house. I ended up a couple months later moving 2 states away to
Okay.
live with my niece. These are not things you see for yourself at 49, right? You see the
Mhm.
corner office and all of the other things, but not that. And asking for help so many times that year
Mhm.
was definitely the most vulnerable I've ever felt. And another growth, piece of starting a business or doing anything is, I don't know why, but for me, I think asking for help is always the hardest thing.
And why do you think that is?
I don't know if it's a show of weakness. As soon as I finish my therapy and I get to the bottom of that, I'll let you know. And I don't know that's an answer I'm going to get.
Mhm.
But, part of it may be that's who I was raised by. We'd give the shirt off his back to anybody, he'd have done that. But, rarely did you see him ask for help.
Mhm.
And so I've often wondered why I felt that way, but it's an admission of weakness is one way you can look at it. It's also just a admission that we're all vulnerable. Nobody can
Sure.
do it all by themselves. It takes a
Right.
village. And yet I think, I've been youngest child, youngest in the family, and, I want to do it myself. And, so sometimes that attitude gets in the way of you actually having the most growth by asking smarter people than you in the room.
I love that. And if you would allow me to weigh in on that, I mean, what I see in that, you asking for help, is I see that as a tremendous display of strength. I
Yeah.
mean, it's putting yourself out there and saying, you know what, I can't do this myself. I mean, that takes a lot of courage. And, it's just to step forward and to acknowledge that you can't do this yourself. And I've done that many times before. I realized too, I tried to, kind of carry all this on my shoulders and just power through. And I grew up in an old school Italian family of, you just kind of, power through it and get your stuff done and don't ask anybody for help. And, there were some life experiences that I had where I had no choice but to ask for help. And when I did, it was so incredibly eye-opening to see how quickly people came to my rescue, to see how quickly, people were right there.
Mhm.
People want to help. I mean, people do have, very generous, kind, benevolent spirits. And sometimes They just don't know what we need. And when we put ourselves out there and muster up the courage to ask, it's really when we give the other people opportunities to step up and step into their greatness and step into their places of humanitarianism and connection. And we all form stronger bonds because of it. So I applaud you on coming to that place of being comfortable with asking for help.
Yeah, thank you. And I think you brought up a really good point. People do want to help. And in a sense, I think if anybody's struggling with it, just remembering you're actually empowering others to do, use their talents, their unique skills, and we each have them. So if we all work together with them, we end up with a much better end product anyway.
Right, absolutely. So thank you for sharing that. Thank you for being
Yeah.
well and sharing that. I appreciate it. There's so many places we could go. I feel like I could talk to you for hours, but I'm particularly intrigued by your target market, your brand, your this whole Flippin' 50. I love the idea, the concept, the name that you chose. And I would love to hear you talk about that, particularly as I start to approach that next milestone, as I'm, kind of looking ahead and, how I see 50 now is so, so vastly different than how I used to see it several years ago. I mean, I feel like as I'm aging, because I've committed to a lifestyle of being super active and health and fitness, I feel like there is a way to do this right. There is a way to do this aging thing
Yeah.
right and age backwards, so to speak. And who better to tell us about it than you? So I would love to hear you talk about that.
Well, it's so very exciting. I mean, there's never been a better time to be flipping 50. I mean, we are really, I think, changing history right now. So I think we have to give a nod and a thank you to all those baby boomers who went through, because in such vast numbers, they've given science, they've given researchers so much information about what does happen, what needs to happen, what doesn't need to happen, and what is possible. And that's, I think, where we are. We're going to show people more of what's possible. So for future generations, they will continue to add on to that. But I think we're a kind of a pivotal generation right now going through this. So why flipping 50 for me is, when I left that safe, secure job at 49 to start a business, my real target was fitness professionals and health coaches and helping them elevate the fitness industry and the mission of it. It's such a booming business, fitness is, and the industry has boomed, in the last 5 years and 10 years more than it had in the 30 prior to that. And yet, as the industry grows, the continuum broadened. So we got more, but not always more quality. So my goal was for consumers to have better choices, to have more better choices. But what often happens, like in many industries, is those who can market and sell often emerge as the winners. And those are not always the people who have the most skill and the heart-centered value to give a consumer. And there was a big disconnect as I was teaching in kinesiology at Iowa State University for 15 years with students' knowledge and awareness that they needed to be able to market and sell. If I had a nickel for every time a student would have come in and told me, well, I want to work with the really motivated ones. And, I'm like, good luck with that. Because when you look at the statistics, more of us need accountability, and we need programming, and we need behavior change support all along the way. So the being able to take those good ones, the ones who really do have the knowledge and the skill and the desire to continue being the lifelong students to help their clients, often are the ones who like marketing and sales the least, and they need those skills. So my goal was to actually help them. Since I've been presenting internationally for fitness associations, that's what I was doing. So when I first started, the rooms were almost empty. So I would be talking to 3 to 5 people, and next door in the hop around, jump around, dance, aerobics, they're crowded, right? They're standing
Mhm.
room only. And now we've switched. Now fitness professionals understand it. But what I realized is when I wanted to target that market, that I was going to be very ineffective unless I was still doing it myself. So I still had to literally be working with a consumer in order to teach a trainer or a health coach, here's what's working, here's how to get someone started, here's how to keep them motivated and get them results. So that's why I started and narrowed my niche after the 29 years to flipping 50. Partially, that's who I'd worked with all along. I
Mhm.
was raised by those older parents, remember, who
Yeah.
just made it a natural fit for me. Even as a younger trainer and a student in college, I was often given older clients because I was comfortable with them and they were comfortable with me.
Mhm.
So it was kind of a gift to be born, into the spot in my family where I was. And I didn't know I was doing research when I was doing research way back when, but there you have it. So Flipping 50 came out of that, having worked with midlife women for so long, and then suddenly being one, right? And
Right.
realize I know what I need them to know now. And I know it because I am one. So I don't just have empathy for my clients. I'm in the boat rowing with them. I
Mhm.
get it. Yeah.
Yeah. And there is no better teacher than life, like our life experiences, right? The atmosphere in which you grew up, the people you were surrounded by, etc. And
Yes.
you were just being primed for this future role that you were going to take on. So let's talk about motivation a little bit, because I know that that's a really hot topic right now. I mean, a lot of my clients come to me and say, I'm feeling not feeling particularly motivated, not necessarily only with respect to health and fitness, but just with life in general. So let's talk about motivation and first of all, where you think it may stem from. I know it's different for every person, but how do you identify the root cause of it? And what do you do? And how do you help your clients and help other professionals to motivate their clients?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's a great topic. And this one we could be here for hours talking about too. So we're going to have to get together again, girlfriend.
Absolutely.
Um, so, one, I'll start with this. It's not motivation that we want, it's commitment. And, I'll have you think about it like this. I'm a mom, I've been married, and, in both of those things, they were both things that I wanted, but there were always moments in those roles that I played where I wasn't always motivated. I mean, do you want to get up at 4:30 in the morning and take a kid to basketball practice in winter? Do you want to, work through those relationship issues about holidays and families and in-laws and whose house are we going to? It's not always fun and easy, but you're in it and you're committed to it.
Mhm.
So there's no quitting and there's a difference there. So when you're thinking about exercise, waiting to get motivated, is very, unlikely to happen. And part of that is the fitness industry did you all a disservice by naming things workout. First of all, nobody loves work. I mean, not really, right? When it comes right down to it, would you rather play or work? What are you going to choose?
Right.
So when we call things workout, we associate pain with them or discomfort. We've
Mhm.
learned from the moment we put our fingers on a hot stove to avoid pain, and your brain does that even if you don't realize it's happening. So, you're not going to get motivated to do something that you might think is uncomfortable,
Right.
makes you intimidated walking into a gym for the first time. And it doesn't matter if you're a CEO or you were a cheerleader in high school. If you're walking into a gym, you may be in charge and confident in other arenas, but if you're not in a gym, everybody starts at square one. So you've got to think it's not just personal confidence, and give yourself a little grace if you're finding, I'm avoiding that at all costs, because we like to do things we're good at. We tend to want to avoid things we're not. So
Mhm.
none of us are good at things we're doing for the first time or for the first time in a long time. So, I think if you can accept that it's not you, there's nothing wrong with you, it's not a lack of willpower or discipline, it's okay, let's look at it from a different lens. So, so many of us in different areas of our lives, we've heard you need a why, right? So,
Right.
that when we're talking about motivation is the why. And I like to go a little deeper and call it the cry why. So if you don't have a reason to do this that brings tears to your eyes, you better keep digging because it's not
Yeah.
easy to get up earlier in the morning to get it done or fit it in over lunch instead of having lunch with your friends or do it
Mhm.
after work. Those things take a little sacrifice. Most things that are worthwhile do. But if you can remind yourself of that reason that means so much to you, then you can get it done.
Right, right. I love that. And I know that was a big piece on my journey too. I've tried to lose weight over the years after having my kids. And, I could, until I identified that, and everybody has a different term. I love your term for it, the cry why. I use deep-seated why, until, I would say, oh, I want to be in a smaller, smaller pant size or, and I just, that wasn't enough to motivate me. I mean, that wasn't enough just to see a smaller number on the scale, a lower number on the scale, a smaller number on my jeans. I really needed to anchor on the feeling, right? The feeling, how do I want to feel when I achieve a certain point? And then once I really anchored on the feeling, then that was a game changer. So it's really, like you said, going deeper and really trying to figure out what that deeper motivator is.
Yeah,
So
completely agree.
So what's the most challenging part? I know you love what you do. You're obviously like you radiate positive energy. I mean, you're clearly aligned with your passion and your purpose, your profession, it's all aligned. But what is the most challenging part of any aspect of what you do?
Oh, gosh. And I would say right now, right in the moment we're in, honestly, having an online business, it hasn't changed a lot. So I'm one of those people that COVID hasn't affected, my day-to-day work life really at all, other than extending, my empathy toward customers and clients who are being affected in so many ways. But I think it is the probably still comes back to asking for help.
Mm.
And, you can toil away a lot as an entrepreneur. And, I've got a team, but they're virtual. So it's not like somebody's in the next room and we can brainstorm and they actually may be doing another task and I can't just even text them or call them. So
Mhm.
that I think it can be a very isolating kind of a way to run a business and operate. And if you're working with the public, you've got to find a way to constantly communicate with them. So I think it's that. It's just making sure you're not working in a silo. So
Yeah.
it can easily become, you're making all the decisions, you're doing all of it without like looking up to try
Mhm.
again.
Yeah. And so what is the best way for entrepreneurs, people who work out of their houses, who work remotely to connect with their clients?
I love, using something like this. So using Zoom or using FaceTime or using Skype, to keep
Mhm.
it as simple as possible. I have noticed a lot in the last few months. So I do a lot of phone consultations when someone wants to go the next step. But lately, so many people ask for FaceTime. And
Okay.
I think it's just, we're so hungry for that personal connection because we're not seeing as many people. We're not actually making that connection in public. So I think it's remembering that you don't have to have all the answers, but sometimes people just need to hear from you and see you and know that you've got their back and you're thinking about them and you asking, where are you right now? What's happening for you right now? What do you need most right now? How can I help you? I think a few questions are just well placed and they land very well and make someone feel cared for.
Absolutely. And that is so important. I mean, that's the number one thing I strive for when I work with my clients is everyone wants to be cared for, right? Everyone wants to be heard. They
Yep.
want to be seen. And, it really just takes a few minutes or just a couple simple questions. Just how are you? 3 words that really touch people very deeply. So thank you for sharing that.
Mhm.
So now I'd love to give you an opportunity to do a little commercial for yourself and your business. I'd love to hear you talk about any aspect of it. I know you have many accomplishments, but I'd love to hear you talk a little bit more about any aspect and let people know how they can get in touch with you directly.
Yes. Okay. So thanks for that. That's wide open. All right. So, um, one of the things I'd love for anybody to do, and if you are specifically, a woman in midlife, or you know one or you love one, how's that? That covers all of us.
Yes, it does.
I just last week, my TEDx talk, I delivered it in November. So it was a little bit of a victim of COVID-19, kind of waiting in the editing and release process. So it was released last week. It's called Everything Women in Menopause Learned About Exercise May Be a Lie. So I would love more eyeballs on that, sharing it if that resonates with you, or you know a woman who's doing all she thinks she should be, but she's not getting the results that she thinks she should be. I've got some answers as to why that might be true. Um, and then otherwise, the best place to connect with me is at flipping50.com. And that, by the way, is all spelled out, not numbers, but just words. And, you know, two things happening. So we have a very active membership group who think of it as your virtual gym. And right now, in this moment in history that we are all in and don't recall signing up for, everybody needs at home exercise if they're choosing at least to stay at home and stay safer. So, checking it out to find out, is that something that resonates for you and gives you options and the community and the accountability with exercise designed for you? So I'd encourage everybody to go look at it. And then I'd say to those trainers and health coaches, or those of you who want to be there, because I think COVID's made all of us reassess, do I want to go back to the life that I had, or is there something new that I want to do? Consider the Flipping 50 fitness specialist, because inevitably, if I speak to a live audience, supposedly someday soon we'll all be doing that again on stage, maybe not always virtually. But the next question I get from women in the audience is, where do I find trainers who know this, who can help me with hormone balancing exercise, and who know the difference between just traditional conventional exercise prescription and that helps women in midlife balance their hormones as opposed to making them feel worse or more tired. So that's the Flipping 50 Fitness Specialist, and you can find information about that also at flipping50.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. And I'm going to check that out for sure.
Great.
So I am so grateful that you took out time from your day to be on my show. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. It was fun chatting with you.
Absolutely. And I would like to thank all of our viewers and listeners for being here and listening to all of Debra's knowledge and wisdom that she shared with us today. I'm super grateful. Time is a choice, and I so appreciate you being here. Also, I wanted to remind you to check us out at liveauthentically.today/FB, our Facebook group, and also go to SOAR, my book launch website, PamelaSavino.com. Thank you all, and I hope you have a great day.